There are moments in life when logic seems to fail, when circumstances defy reason, and yet in the midst of impossibility, you survive. These are not mere coincidences, nor are they simply products of human resilience. They are the fingerprints of divine protection at work in unseen realms. When you look back at your life at the times when you should have been overwhelmed or defeated, and yet you emerged intact, preserved, or even triumphant, it is a sign that something far greater than chance has been guarding your steps. The challenges you faced, the obstacles that seemed insurmountable, and the moments of despair that could have defined your story, all of these were arenas in which God's unseen hand moved to ensure that you would not just endure but be prepared for the destiny He has set before you. Recognizing this is crucial. The present moment you find yourself in is not random. Every breath, every opportunity, every circumstance that brings you to that point is a divine confirmation of your path. The life you have lived with all its twists, trials, and triumphs is part of a larger, meticulously orchestrated plan. You are not an accident of circumstance. You are chosen. Your survival, your continued presence, and the subtle ways in which the universe has aligned to protect, sustain, and direct you are all indicators of purpose. The recognition of this truth transforms perspective. It allows you to see your past struggles not as meaningless suffering, but as preparation for the mission you were created to fulfill. The very fact that you are here reading these words, listening to this message, or receiving this guidance is a confirmation of your chosen status. You are preserved intentionally for a purpose that stretches beyond the limitations of your current understanding. You were selected not because you are perfect, nor because you have always succeeded, but because the Creator has a plan that requires your unique combination of experiences, strengths, and endurance. Being chosen does not mean life will be free of challenges. It means that in every challenge there is a divine preservation, a safeguarding that allows you to grow, adapt, and become equipped for what lies ahead. This is the essence of being a chosen one, living under protection, guided by purpose, and prepared to move into divine assignments that will redefine both your life and the lives of those around you. Inviting reflection on past struggles allows a deeper understanding of the spiritual battles you have already endured. Every setback, every season of isolation, and every moment of testing has been a stage on which you were being strengthened, trained, and prepared for the assignment that awaits. Often we perceive hardships as setbacks or failures, but when viewed through the lens of divine purpose, these experiences are actually opportunities to cultivate resilience, discernment, and spiritual awareness. Each challenge is a reminder that your life has been guarded, that survival was not random, and that every victory, even the small ones, was a rehearsal for larger triumphs yet to come. Reflection becomes a tool for awakening, revealing that your path has always been under divine supervision, and that the lessons embedded in your journey are both intentional and indispensable. In this awakening, there is also a call to embrace the reality of unseen protection. The realms beyond human perception are active, and they have continuously worked in your favor, shielding you from dangers you may not have comprehended at the time. From invisible interventions to moments of uncanny timing, these occurrences are evidence that divine forces have preserved you to fulfill a purpose far greater than mere survival. Awareness of this protection strengthens faith, deepens trust, and empowers the chosen one to walk boldly into future assignments, knowing that every step has been accounted for by a power beyond human comprehension. Finally, as this message unfolds, there is a promise to close with a prayer. An intentional, powerful prayer designed to seal understanding, reinforce alignment with divine purpose, and invite direct spiritual activation into your life. The prayer will serve not just as a conclusion, but as an invocation of protection, clarity, and empowerment, equipping the chosen one to step confidently into the next chapter. It will be a bridge from reflection to action, from understanding to manifestation, ensuring that the truths you have absorbed are not merely theoretical, but actively engaged within your spirit. The awakening of the chosen one, therefore, is not an abstract concept. It is a recognition of divine preservation, a deep understanding of your purpose, and a call to embrace both the unseen battles you have overcome and the spiritual victories that lie ahead. Every past struggle, every moment of survival, and every indication of divine intervention serves as a testament to your chosenness. This awakening invites you to stand ready, aware, and aligned, trusting that the journey ahead has already been prepared, the path already secured, and the assignment already set. Your life is a living confirmation that God's protection is real, that purpose is intentional, and that the chosen one has been preserved for this very moment. Life's battles often do not arrive as visible swords or obvious attacks. Instead, they appear in subtle, insidious ways through betrayal by those we trust, the heaviness of depression, the distractions that pull us from purpose, and the quiet erosion of confidence or hope. These are the arenas of unseen warfare, the battlegrounds where spiritual forces operate beyond natural perception. While the external world may not recognize these struggles as battles, they are no less real. Every choice to persevere in the face of deception, every moment of resisting discouragement, and every decision to maintain integrity amid chaos represents a victory that may not be celebrated publicly, but is deeply significant in the spiritual realm. This is the essence of invisible victories, the triumphs that occur quietly yet decisively shaping destiny and fortifying character. Even everyday choices, such as the decision to remain silent in a moment when words could escalate. Conflict, the choice to forgive when justice feels delayed, or the embrace of humility when pride tempts us, are spiritual victories of immense consequence. These moments, often overlooked in the rush of life, are in fact battles won in heaven. They are the instances where faith is proven more powerful than fear, where discipline triumphs over impulse, and where obedience outweighs comfort. In the unseen realm, these victories accumulate, building momentum that shapes outcomes in ways that may only become visible much later. They are the quiet victories that prepare the chosen one for the supernatural alignment and divine appointments ahead. Dark forces, however, are adept at disguising themselves in forms that feel natural or inevitable. They often operate under the guise of repetitive negative patterns, generational pain, or even false blessings that divert attention from true purpose. These disguised attacks are meant to lull the believer into resignation, doubt, or distraction. The enemy often masquerades as familiarity, comfort, or conventional wisdom, making it difficult to discern the true source of pressure or delay. Yet in every disguised attack, the chosen one has the power to discern, resist, and overcome by clinging to truth and refusing to submit to deception. Awareness and spiritual vigilance become the tools by which invisible victories are claimed, breaking strongholds and restoring clarity to the path of purpose. Choosing truth over comfort is a pivotal aspect of these victories. When the natural inclination is to seek ease, avoidance, or immediate gratification, choosing to embrace divine truth often feels uncomfortable or counterintuitive. Yet it is in these moments, when the believer chooses honesty, righteousness, and integrity over convenience, that spiritual strongholds are dismantled. Comfort may promise temporary relief, but truth yields lasting transformation. Each decision to live according to divine principles, even when unseen forces resist, serves to weaken the enemy's grip, realign life with destiny, and fortify the believer against future attacks. The biblical foundation for this understanding is clear in 2 Corinthians chapter 10:4, which declares that the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. This verse illuminates the reality that our battles are not merely physical or external. They are fundamentally spiritual, fought with faith, prayer, obedience, and discernment. The weapons of the believer, righteousness, truth, humility, and perseverance, carry the authority to dismantle entrenched spiritual opposition even when the victories are not immediately visible. Recognizing this empowers the chosen one to embrace both the weight and the purpose of unseen warfare, understanding that every trial and challenge is a battleground where destiny is forged. In practical terms, invisible victories manifest as resilience in adversity, clarity in confusion, and faithfulness in trials. They are experienced when a person maintains moral and spiritual integrity under pressure, remains steadfast in hope amid prolonged waiting, or exercises restraint and wisdom when provoked. While these victories may not garner applause or recognition from the world, they are recorded in heaven, shaping the trajectory of the believer's life and establishing the foundation for divine appointments and miraculous interventions. Each silent triumph, whether in thought, word, or deed, is a victory over darkness, a claim of spiritual territory, and a preparation for the greater works that God has ordained. Ultimately, the recognition of unseen warfare and invisible victories invites a perspective shift. Life's struggles, though challenging and often painful, are not random. They are arenas of spiritual testing and growth. Every choice to embrace humility, exercise forgiveness, pursue truth, and persevere under pressure is a victory that builds spiritual authority, fortifies character, and positions the chosen one for destiny. These victories, though imperceptible to the eye, accumulate in power and significance, preparing the believer for divine appointments, breakthroughs, and the manifestation of God's supernatural purpose. In the journey of the chosen one, there are seasons that feel like isolation and wilderness moments when exhaustion overwhelms every fiber of your being. The prophet Elijah's experience provides a profound parallel to these periods in our own lives. After the dramatic confrontation on Mount Carmel, when fire fell from heaven and the false prophets were defeated, Elijah fled into the wilderness feeling utterly alone, defeated by fear and weary beyond measure. Despite the miraculous display of God's power, the weight of expectation, opposition, and exhaustion pressed upon him. In this moment, Elijah's journey mirrors the inner battles and silent struggles that every chosen one encounters: a wilderness where survival feels tenuous and the spirit cries out for relief. Feeling alone, empty, and utterly exhausted is often part of the preparatory process that God orchestrates. In these seasons, the external world may fail to recognize your perseverance and human support may be absent, yet divine preservation is at work. Just as Elijah was sustained in the wilderness, so too are you preserved even when your resources are depleted, your hope seems fragile, and your body and mind cry out for rest. This preservation is not accidental, it is deliberate. The very moments of deepest weariness are often the ones where heaven intervenes most powerfully, ensuring that your life purpose and calling remain intact. Exhaustion, when viewed through the lens of divine orchestration, is not a sign of defeat, it is a stage in preparation for what lies ahead. Angels in both biblical accounts and spiritual reality minister to the one whom God has chosen, offering sustenance, guidance, and strength. In Elijah's wilderness, an angel provided bread and water, restoring physical strength and fortifying the spirit for the journey ahead. This demonstrates that divine intervention often comes in quiet, subtle ways, nurturing the chosen one for the next stage of calling. For you, the moments of unseen support may come as a sudden insight, a word of encouragement, a timely opportunity, or an inexplicable sense of strength when all seems lost. The purpose of these ministrations is to ensure that you remain on course, resilient in spirit, and ready to step into the next chapter of destiny, fully equipped and spiritually aligned. Your survival through exhaustion and apparent isolation is a testament to intentional preservation. It is evidence that your path is under divine supervision, that every hardship you have endured has been measured and purposeful, and that you are being positioned for greater impact. The trials that test endurance, the loneliness that stretches patience, and the weight of expectation that presses heavily upon the soul are not random hardships. They are shaping you into a vessel capable of carrying responsibility, influence, and supernatural assignments. Just as Elijah's wilderness experience prepared him for renewed ministry and a deeper understanding of God's timing, your own periods of exhaustion are preparing you for the manifestation of purpose that awaits. Pain, though difficult and often overwhelming, serves a greater function. It positions the chosen one for an elevated calling. Every moment of fatigue, every tear shed in solitude, and every encounter with discouragement contributes to spiritual growth, discernment, and resilience. The wilderness becomes a classroom, and each challenge transforms into a lesson designed to equip, refine, and strengthen the individual. Understanding pain as positioning rather than punishment allows you to navigate hardship with faith, patience, and hope. It is the crucible in which character is molded, faith is tested, and spiritual authority is strengthened, ensuring that when the moment of breakthrough arrives, you are prepared to receive it fully and wisely. Moreover, the Elijah parallel emphasizes that divine timing and preservation operate even when circumstances seem contradictory. Elijah had just witnessed a monumental victory, yet he was physically and emotionally depleted, illustrating that spiritual triumphs do not always equate to immediate relief or visible peace. Similarly, your victories, both seen and unseen, may be accompanied by trials, testing, or periods of waiting. These are not signs of neglect. They are markers of divine strategy, ensuring that the chosen one is fully prepared for the responsibilities, revelations, and assignments that lie ahead. Every struggle, every moment of fatigue is a deliberate preparation for the manifestation of purpose designed to align timing, strengthen resolve, and cultivate endurance. In essence, being preserved in exhaustion reveals a profound spiritual truth. The chosen one is never abandoned even in wilderness seasons of isolation, emptiness, and fatigue. The challenges, the weariness, and the moments of despair are not accidental but purposeful, serving to position you for the next stage of divine calling. Angels, divine intervention, and spiritual sustenance accompany you even when unseen, ensuring that survival is intentional and preparation is complete. Pain becomes a vehicle for growth. Exhaustion becomes a testimony of preservation, and solitude becomes the environment in which resilience and faith are fortified. Just as Elijah emerged renewed and empowered to continue his mission, you too are being preserved, refined, and prepared for the supernatural purpose for which you were chosen. Silent nights often bring more than rest. They can carry unexplained heaviness, moments of emotional collapse, and a sense of isolation that feels almost tangible. These nights, when the mind races with doubts and the heart wrestles with uncertainty, are frequently the battlegrounds of the first demon the chosen one must confront: despair. Unlike obvious attacks or external opposition, despair strikes subtly, ambushing the spirit in ways that leave the body exhausted and the soul discouraged. It appears as hopelessness, as an invisible weight pressing down on the mind, attempting to obscure purpose and diminish faith. Yet it is precisely in these quiet internal battles that destiny is tested, refined, and ultimately strengthened. Despair is not a mere emotional state. It is a spiritual ambush aimed at disrupting destiny before it emerges fully. Its goal is to undermine confidence, distort perception, and instill a sense of futility that can paralyze action and delay purpose. In many ways, despair attacks identity itself, seeking to convince the believer that they are unworthy, incapable, or abandoned. The enemy knows that if identity is compromised, the unfolding of divine purpose becomes difficult to discern or embrace. These moments of silent struggle then are far from meaningless. They are targeted spiritual contests deliberately designed to challenge the chosen one, testing the depth of faith and the resilience of hope in the face of overwhelming pressure. Even in the midst of numbness, hopelessness, or emotional paralysis, the spirit of the chosen one continues to move. There is an inherent resilience in those chosen for purpose, a divine spark that refuses to be extinguished even when circumstances, thoughts, and emotions suggest surrender. The act of continuing to rise, to breathe, to hold on to life and purpose is itself a form of spiritual defiance against despair. Each small act of perseverance, choosing to pray when it is easier to sleep, to read the word when the mind rebels, or to speak affirmations of faith when doubt tempts, represents an invisible but powerful resistance. These quiet acts accumulate, forming a spiritual armor that fortifies the believer against future attacks and establishes a precedent for victory over other adversities. Victory over despair is often achieved in moments of whispered faith, a simple but profound declaration: "I trust you." These words, spoken in vulnerability and humility, carry tremendous spiritual weight. They are more than statements of belief. They are acts of defiance against the lies that despair perpetuates. In the quiet acknowledgement that God is sovereign, faithful, and present, the chosen one reclaims authority over the mind, heart, and soul. Faith, even when fragile, becomes a weapon that disrupts the strategy of despair, replacing hopelessness with expectancy, fear with courage, and paralysis with the subtle yet steady motion of obedience. It is through these whispered confessions of trust that the first victories in unseen warfare are secured. The result of confronting and defeating despair is transformative. Spiritual authority is cultivated as the chosen one learns to recognize the tactics of darkness and resist them effectively. Discernment grows, enabling the believer to differentiate between lies and truth, deception and guidance. Inner clarity emerges, bringing insight into personal identity, divine purpose, and the spiritual mechanics at work behind every trial. The battle against despair, while initially exhausting and intimidating, becomes a foundation for empowerment, equipping the chosen one to face subsequent challenges with confidence and faith. Each victory over despair is a confirmation that the believer can navigate even the most subtle and insidious attacks without losing sight of divine purpose. Moreover, the defeat of despair signals a larger spiritual reality that purpose and identity are not dependent on circumstances or emotions, but are anchored in divine intention. While despair attempts to obscure vision and cloud judgment, the act of trusting God restores perspective, reaffirming that every struggle serves preparation, not punishment. By overcoming despair, the chosen one learns that spiritual victory is often hidden in small, consistent acts of faith, and that resilience in moments of internal battle carries as much weight as triumphs over visible opposition. In essence, the first demon-defeated despair teaches that the chosen one's journey is not solely external, but profoundly internal. The nights of heaviness, the internal ambushes, and the attempts to diminish identity are all arenas in which spiritual strength, authority, and clarity are cultivated. By confronting despair with whispered faith, perseverance, and trust in divine oversight, the believer emerges fortified, equipped, and prepared to face future battles with discernment, confidence, and an unwavering connection to purpose. Despair is defeated not by grand displays of strength, but by the quiet, consistent choice to trust, obey, and believe, laying the foundation for every subsequent victory in the journey of the chosen one. The second demon that the chosen one must confront often arrives not through obvious opposition, but in the form of betrayal disguised as closeness. It is an attack wrapped in familiarity executed through a vessel once trusted, whose affection or guidance seemed genuine. This type of betrayal is uniquely disorienting because it exploits the natural tendency of the heart to trust, to rely, and to share intimate spaces of influence. Unlike overt opposition, which can be resisted with vigilance and preparation, betrayal through a trusted vessel infiltrates quietly, subtly eroding confidence, stability, and the believer's sense of security. It strikes at the intersection of relationship and purpose, forcing the chosen one to discern the difference between genuine support and manipulative influence. Influence wrapped in affection can be one of the most confusing forms of attack because it carries a veneer of care or love that masks the true intention. Words of encouragement may subtly undermine calling, compliments may sow seeds of doubt, and gestures of guidance may manipulate choices in ways that slowly erode the believer's trajectory. The impact of such betrayal often appears in internal dialogue, uncertainty creeping into decisions, hesitation before action, or repeated questioning of God's direction. This is precisely why betrayal through a trusted vessel can feel more damaging than direct opposition. It attacks the interior life, creating tension between loyalty and discernment, familiarity and obedience, love and spiritual alignment. Yet even in its subtlety, this demon can be confronted and overcome when the chosen one recognizes its disguise and refuses to yield authority over destiny. The seeds of doubt, manipulation, and internal weakening that accompany betrayal are not meant to define the chosen one. They are tests of resilience, character, and spiritual perception. Just as weeds hidden in fertile soil can threaten the growth of plants, these seeds, if left unexamined, can grow into patterns of compromise, distraction, or misalignment. Awareness and discernment become critical tools, allowing the believer to identify the source of the attack, set boundaries, and reclaim influence over their own spirit. In doing so, the Chosen One turns what initially appears to be a setback into an opportunity for spiritual fortification, deepening insight into both human dynamics and divine orchestration. The biblical parallel is striking in Psalm 41:9, where David laments, "Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me." This verse encapsulates the painful reality of betrayal by those closest to us, and validates the intensity of the spiritual and emotional assault it can bring. Yet it also reminds the Chosen One that such experiences, though deeply wounding, do not signal abandonment by God. Rather, they become instruments of refinement, training the heart to distinguish genuine relationships from toxic influence, and teaching the value of detachment when alignment with divine purpose is at stake. Painful detachment, while emotionally costly, often emerges as a form of deliverance. Breaking ties with those who undermine calling, even under the guise of care, frees the Chosen One from the subtle control of spiritual opposition operating through human vessels. This detachment does not arise from bitterness or retaliation, but from intentional discernment and obedience to divine guidance. By releasing unhealthy bonds, the believer reclaims focus, restores internal clarity, and opens space for authentic alignment with God's plan. The pain of separation becomes a catalyst for empowerment, revealing that deliverance sometimes arrives in forms that initially feel like loss, but are in reality liberation. After breaking the tie of betrayal, the Chosen One experiences profound growth. Authority increases as boundaries become strengthened, and the spirit is fortified against deception. Discernment matures, equipping the believer to navigate future relationships, alliances, and spiritual assignments with wisdom and vigilance. The experience of betrayal, though initially disorienting and painful, becomes a turning point, a crucible through which spiritual authority and insight are refined. By overcoming this demon, the Chosen One learns that even attacks veiled in love or familiarity are opportunities for growth, positioning, and greater empowerment in the unfolding of purpose. Ultimately, the defeat of this demon teaches a critical principle: betrayal, while deeply wounding, is not a measure of failure, but a tool of divine refinement. The Chosen One is strengthened not by avoiding betrayal, but by confronting it with faith, discernment, and obedience. Each encounter with deception or manipulation, when met with wisdom and spiritual authority, becomes a lesson in resilience, a testimony of preservation, and a preparation for the broader assignments that lie ahead. Authority, discernment, and clarity are not simply granted, they are earned through the faithful navigation of betrayal, the courageous release of unhealthy ties, and the unwavering commitment to walk in divine purpose. The third demon that confronts the Chosen One often arrives under the guise of opportunity, clarity, or elevation. It is false alignment, a subtle, cunning deception designed to mimic divine favor while quietly diverting the believer from purpose. Unlike overt attacks, this enemy is skilled in disguise, presenting itself as a legitimate path, a seemingly good choice, or a shortcut to success. Its appeal is seductive. It promises growth, progress, or recognition. Yet beneath the surface, it slowly drains spiritual vitality, erodes focus, and numbs discernment. The danger of false alignment lies in its subtlety. It can appear entirely plausible, even righteous, making it all the more difficult to detect and resist. Seemingly good paths are often the testing grounds for spiritual maturity. These paths may look promising, align with worldly expectations, or even carry some elements of truth, yet they quietly pull the believer away from the exact assignment God has prepared. The enemy, understanding the human desire for advancement and affirmation, crafts these deceptive routes to lure the Chosen One into compromise. The allure of progress can be intoxicating. The approval of others, the comfort of visible success, or the apparent alignment with natural timing may all seem convincing. Yet when a path subtly drains, purpose clouds judgment, or erodes spiritual sensitivity, it is clear that discernment and obedience are required. Shortcuts too often masquerade as divine strategy. They present themselves as faster, easier ways to reach a goal, complete a mission, or achieve recognition. At first glance, these shortcuts may even appear inspired or divinely orchestrated. However, the spiritual cost of such avenues is hidden complacency, numbness, or gradual misalignment with God's higher purposes. The chosen one may experience temporary gain, but at the expense of spiritual growth, clarity, and alignment with true calling. False alignment teaches a critical lesson. Not all that glimmers with apparent blessing carries life, and sometimes the path that feels slow, arduous, or hidden is exactly the one prepared by God for enduring impact. Proverbs 14:12 provides a profound biblical anchor for this struggle, declaring there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. This verse encapsulates the essence of false alignment, the deception of appearance versus reality. It reminds the chosen one that discernment is not optional, it is essential. Spiritual maturity involves the ability to pause, question, and test seemingly good opportunities against divine guidance, by anchoring decisions in prayer, the word, and spiritual intuition. The believer can navigate paths that appear favorable but may carry hidden consequences, ensuring that every choice is aligned with purpose rather than persuasion. Victory over false alignment often comes in moments of quiet, courageous obedience. The chosen one may experience an inner alarm, a subtle prompting from the Spirit warning that something is not fully right. This warning may not be accompanied by dramatic signs. It can manifest as discomfort, unease, or a gentle sense of caution. Choosing to heed this inner guidance even when external circumstances encourage engagement is an act of spiritual vigilance. Stepping away from what seems beneficial, avoiding shortcuts that appear appealing, and resisting the seductive pull of external approval requires courage, trust, and reliance on divine discernment. It is in these moments of quiet obedience that the chosen one begins to dismantle the hold of false alignment. The result of this victory is profound. By refusing to compromise spiritual integrity for temporary gain, the chosen one preserves the essence of purpose and calling. Peace is restored as the mind and spirit align with God's direction. Clarity emerges regarding next steps and true opportunities, and spiritual sensitivity is sharpened. Each victory over false alignment reinforces the capacity to recognize deception in its many forms and strengthens the ability to distinguish between authentic divine guidance and cleverly disguised distractions. It cultivates resilience, patience, and the wisdom to prioritize long-term fulfillment over fleeting recognition or comfort. Ultimately, defeating false alignment confirms a fundamental principle: obedience and discernment outweigh allure and appearance. By stepping away from paths that superficially promise progress but secretly divert destiny, the chosen one secures spiritual authority, preserves purpose, and positions for true divine breakthroughs. The victory is not measured solely in external outcomes, but in the restoration of peace, the clarity of purpose, and the alignment of the Spirit with heaven's orchestration. False alignment is defeated when the believer chooses faithfulness over convenience, obedience over persuasion, and divine guidance over worldly approval, ensuring that every step taken is fully in rhythm with the purpose for which they were chosen. The attacks you have faced throughout your journey were not random. They were targeted at your identity and potential rather than your behavior or performance. Spiritual opposition does not typically waste energy on what is insignificant. It aims for what is consequential. The enemy recognizes the seeds of destiny long before they fully blossom, identifying the vessels God has marked for influence, breakthrough, and impact. Every betrayal, deception, or season of despair was not an indictment of your worth or actions, but a recognition of the potential embedded within you. These attacks, difficult as they may have felt, serve as confirmation that you carry a purpose that challenges the forces of darkness and that your life matters far beyond the immediate circumstances. The enemy's strategic awareness explains why opposition often appears early, even before calling is fully understood. Just as an opponent might attempt to disable a soldier before battle, spiritual forces seek to undermine the chosen one before divine purpose is fully revealed. This is why so many attacks seem confusing or premature, why trials occur before vision, why betrayal arrives before opportunities, and why exhaustion precedes celebration. The enemy perceives potential as a threat, and understanding the spiritual laws of influence seeks to disorient, distract, and delay. Yet these early attacks, rather than halting destiny, actually serve to prepare the believer, sharpening faith, building resilience, and strengthening discernment for the greater battles and breakthroughs to come. Warfare, therefore, begins long before the calling is recognized. In many ways, your unseen victories, the silent perseverance through despair, betrayal, and false alignment are the prelude to public manifestation. Spiritual opposition is often a signal that you are on the correct path, that destiny is imminent, and that your potential is significant enough to attract resistance. By understanding that these trials are preemptive and strategic, the Chosen One can reframe opposition not as punishment, but as a mark of importance. The enemy attacks what is valuable because they know that a life aligned with God's purpose carries authority, influence, and the ability to shift atmospheres. Obedience, rather than knowledge, is what these forces fear most. Knowledge can be accumulated, strategies can be developed, and plans can be formed, but obedience carries a divine power that cannot be replicated. When the Chosen One consistently chooses faithfulness, integrity, and alignment with God's will, even amid confusion or delay, spiritual forces are neutralized. The acts of small obedience, the whispered prayer, the refusal to compromise, the silent act of integrity, become weapons in themselves, breaking strongholds and positioning the believer for supernatural alignment. Knowledge may reveal possibilities, but it is obedience that activates purpose, transforms potential, and ensures that destiny is unstoppable. False alignment, as we explored previously, is the enemy's preferred weapon because it disguises itself as blessing progress or clarity. It is subtle, deceptive, and tempting, often appearing far more appealing than overt attacks. The enemy uses it to divert focus, drain spiritual vitality, and distort perception of God's path. By disguising obstruction as opportunity, it challenges the Chosen One to discern truth from deception and to choose obedience over comfort. But by becoming false alignment demonstrates spiritual maturity, reinforces authority, and strengthens the believer's capacity to recognize authentic divine direction in every circumstance. Even in the midst of these attacks, the promise of God remains unshakable. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. This assurance is the ultimate confirmation that the Chosen One's purpose cannot be thwarted, regardless of the intensity or creativity of spiritual opposition. Every attack, every ambush, and every seemingly insurmountable trial exists within a framework already anticipated and controlled by God. The enemy may strategize, disguise, and pressure, but the sovereignty of the Almighty ensures that destiny is protected and that divine purpose cannot be permanently hindered. Understanding why attacks happen equips the Chosen One to walk with confidence, clarity, and authority. They are not signs of failure, unworthiness, or divine neglect. Rather, they are markers of importance, proof of potential and opportunities to cultivate obedience, discernment, and spiritual power. The struggles faced before understanding the full calling, before visible blessing, and even before recognition, are the very moments that prepare the vessel to carry authority, influence, and supernatural impact. By embracing this perspective, the Chosen One can transform pain into empowerment, delay into preparation, and opposition into a confirmation that purpose is being fulfilled according to divine design. Ultimately, the mark of destiny is not found in ease or absence of conflict, but in the deliberate preservation, training, and empowerment that occurs through these attacks. The Chosen One emerges from every trial with greater authority, deeper discernment, and a clearer understanding of God's orchestration. Attacks are not random, they are purposeful, strategic, and ultimately powerless against the obedient life, the faith-filled heart, and the aligned spirit of the one God has chosen to impact the world. After seasons of intense spiritual warfare, the post-battle stillness that the Chosen One experiences is often mistaken for emptiness or loss. The quiet that follows the struggle may feel uncomfortable or unsettling, as though life has paused and nothing is moving forward. Yet this stillness is not void, it is divine rest. It is the sacred pause that God ordains after a time of testing, a season in which the Spirit recalibrates wounds, begin to heal, and clarity returns. In this rest, what may appear to be inactivity is actually a critical phase of restoration, a time when victory is quietly consolidated and the chosen one is prepared for the next stage of purpose. Recognizing this stillness as divine rather than accidental allows the believer to embrace it, trusting that progress is occurring in unseen realms even when external circumstances seem static. Closed doors and fading relationships are often indicators of realignment rather than rejection or failure. As life shifts into its divinely appointed order, certain people, opportunities, or environments naturally fall away. While this can feel painful or disorienting at first, it is a signal that the chosen one is moving toward greater alignment with purpose. Doors that remain closed protect the believer from compromise, distraction, and false paths, while fading relationships free space for authentic connections and divine opportunities. What the world might perceive as loss is actually a realignment orchestrated by God, ensuring that the vessel is positioned for maximum effectiveness, clarity, and spiritual authority. An increased sensitivity to motives, deception, and spiritual cues often accompanies these seasons of quiet victory. The chosen one begins to discern more clearly what is genuine and what is counterfeit, what aligns with purpose and what threatens derailment. This heightened awareness is not learned overnight. It is cultivated through the experiences of trials, betrayal, and false alignment. The Spirit becomes attuned to subtleties that once went unnoticed, enabling the believer to navigate relationships, opportunities, and challenges with wisdom and spiritual precision. This sensitivity is a mark of maturity, a sign that invisible victories have been won, and a preparation for the greater assignments that await. Dreams shift, thoughts sharpen, and silence becomes a medium for healing and revelation. The chosen one notices that the mind is no longer clouded by confusion, despair, or distraction. Insight comes with clarity, understanding emerges with patience, and intuition guides decision-making with accuracy. Silence, once uncomfortable, now serves as a restorative space where the Spirit connects deeply with God's voice, refuels for future endeavors, and integrates the lessons learned from past struggles. This transformation is subtle, yet profound. The inner world becomes a sanctuary of clarity, discernment, and alignment. The voice of the chosen one returns, identity restored, and purpose clarified. After battles that targeted identity, drained energy, and attempted to sow doubt, the believer emerges with renewed confidence in who they are and why they were chosen. Words, decisions, and actions flow from a place of authority rather than fear. Self-assurance is no longer dependent on external validation, but rooted in divine confirmation. The restoration of voice is not just symbolic. It signals that the Spirit has regained mastery over internal battles and is ready to express destiny fully, courageously, and without compromise. Ultimately, survival itself becomes irrefutable proof of triumph. Every night endured, every attack resisted, and every moment of perseverance demonstrates that the chosen one has not merely endured, they have already won. The battles fought invisibly, the victories achieved silently, and the obedience maintained under pressure are all tangible evidence that destiny is unfolding according to divine design. Survival is not passive, it is active triumph. It is a testimony to the power of divine preservation, the efficacy of faith, and the inevitability of purpose. Recognizing these signs, the rest, the closed doors, the heightened sensitivity, the clarity of thought, the restored voice, and the very act of surviving transforms perspective. The chosen one can step forward with confidence, knowing that every hardship experienced, every battle fought, and every season endured was not in vain. Victory is not merely anticipated. It has already been achieved in the Spirit, secured in obedience, and confirmed in the very rhythm of life. These markers are both reassurance and instruction. Trust the stillness, embrace realignment, listen to spiritual cues, and act from the restored place of purpose. The signs affirm that the chosen one is not just surviving, they are living in the aftermath of triumph, poised for the manifestation of destiny. There is a profound reason why many of the battles you have faced were hidden from your conscious awareness. Silence in warfare is often a shield against fear and emotional overwhelm. To witness every attack in real time could have paralyzed the spirit, fractured hope, and clouded judgment. God, in his infinite wisdom, allowed the spirit to contend in realms beyond human perception. While the mind rested, maintained focus, and preserved emotional strength. This unseen battle was a protective measure designed to secure victory without exhausting the vessel unnecessarily. The chosen one may not have seen the full scope of opposition, but the outcomes were orchestrated in such a way that survival, endurance, and eventual triumph were guaranteed. God's choice to conceal these battles mirrors the concept of strategic wisdom. Letting the spirit fight while the mind rests ensures that victory is accomplished without overwhelming the human experience. Much like a master strategist, God coordinates every move with precision, knowing that direct exposure to spiritual warfare can trigger fear, anxiety, and doubt. By managing the unseen conflict, he allowed you to preserve focus on faith, obedience, and purpose. Each day you continued forward, making choices rooted in trust rather than reaction was a victory in itself, a demonstration that the chosen one could operate faithfully even without full awareness of the opposition arrayed against them. This hidden warfare can be likened to surgery performed under anesthesia. The procedure is complex, delicate, and precise, yet the patient experiences neither pain nor anxiety during the process. Similarly, God's concealed battles were surgical in nature, removing strongholds, neutralizing opposition, and repositioning circumstances to align with divine purpose. Though you may not have felt the impact at the time, the results were life-altering. Strategic removals occurred. Relationships, opportunities, or paths that seemed promising may have been taken away not as punishment, but as necessary excisions to preserve destiny and ensure alignment with God's ultimate plan. Losses were never random. They were intentional, protective, and precise. You were safeguarded from forces and outcomes that your perception could not yet grasp. There were elements of the battle too complex, too potent, or too dangerous for your awareness at the time. By hiding these struggles, God preserved your mental, emotional, and spiritual equilibrium, enabling you to continue in faith rather than fear. This concealment allowed the spirit to mature quietly, cultivating discernment, resilience, and authority. Each unseen victory fortified the foundation upon which future understanding would be built, preparing the chosen one to engage life with wisdom and clarity once the full picture became evident. Awakening replaces survival mode. When the hidden battles are revealed either retrospectively or through spiritual insight, the chosen one begins to recognize the depth of divine orchestration at work. Awareness of what was fought on their behalf transforms perspective. Survival is no longer merely endurance, it becomes triumph. Realization dawns that every hardship, every trial, and every apparent setback was part of a larger tapestry of victory. This awakening shifts the believer from reactive survival to proactive alignment, empowering them to make decisions with authority, clarity, and confidence that comes from understanding the unseen mechanisms that have already secured their success. New understanding gained through this revelation becomes the foundation for future discernment. The chosen one learns to recognize spiritual dynamics, interpret subtle prompts, and anticipate patterns of opposition before they escalate. The lessons of hidden warfare are both instructional and protective. They train the mind, fortify the spirit, and attune the believer to divine guidance. Knowledge of these past victories instills courage, reinforces faith, and equips the chosen one to navigate future challenges with strategic awareness and spiritual precision. What was once unseen becomes a source of empowerment, transforming the chosen one into a discerning, confident, and spiritually fortified vessel. Ultimately, the hidden battles were never a sign of neglect or absence. They were an act of divine protection, orchestration, and wisdom. God preserved your focus, protected your heart, and allowed the spirit to contend in realms beyond perception, ensuring that victory was already secured long before it was visible. Every removal, every unseen confrontation, and every protected step was an expression of intentional design, positioning you for alignment, clarity, and purpose. By understanding why God concealed these battles, the Chosen One can step forward with confidence, knowing that survival was not luck, endurance was not coincidence, and in every hidden victory was part of a divinely appointed path leading to triumph, awakening, and ultimate fulfillment of destiny. After the third demon fell, a new season began, one that can only be described as spiritual birthing. The battles fought in silence, the victories achieved unseen, and the trials endured in obedience had all been preparatory. Just as a mother's labor, though intense and exhausting, culminates in the arrival of new life, the defeat of opposition in the spirit now ushers in the birth of a renewed identity, purpose, and divine assignment. This is a moment where the Chosen One transitions from survival into full manifestation, moving beyond the limitations of past struggles into the expansive freedom of God's ordained design. Old identities, burdens, and emotional debris are stripped away during this season. The heaviness of doubt, the residue of despair, and the layers of fear accumulated through spiritual warfare are gently but decisively removed. These elements, once tolerated as part of the human experience, are no longer necessary for the fulfillment of divine purpose. In their place emerges clarity of self and spiritual freedom. The shedding of these old weights allows the Chosen One to step forward unencumbered, carrying only the essence of what God has designed. A purified spirit, sharpened discernment, and an unshakable alignment with destiny. Transformation replaces restlessness in this new phase. Where confusion, uncertainty, and internal turbulence once dominated, there is now order, focus, and divine rhythm. The inner life of the Chosen One becomes a sanctuary of peace and authority, reflecting the victory already achieved in unseen realms. This transformation is not instantaneous, but a steady unfolding as the spirit integrates lessons learned from previous battles, consolidates strength gained through perseverance, and aligns fully with God's orchestration. Restlessness fades because the soul recognizes the alignment of timing, purpose, and power, no longer driven by striving, but by divine momentum. New assignments begin to form organically, emerging through alignment rather than human effort. Opportunities, callings, and responsibilities now manifest in harmony with the purified vessel and the lessons hard won through previous trials. There is no need to force growth or seek recognition. The Chosen One discovers that when the spirit is fully aligned with heaven's flow, assignments appear naturally, doors open with precision, and influence expands with grace. This stage demonstrates the principle that divine momentum, rather than personal striving, is the force that shapes destiny. The work that once felt burdensome or uncertain now unfolds with effortless authority and clarity. The calling of the Chosen One is confirmed as false layers are removed. Deception, compromise, and misalignment no longer obscure vision or impede progress. Each trial and victory has acted as a filter, separating what is authentic from what is superficial, what is God-ordained from what is worldly, and what is essential from what is optional. The result is a refined vessel capable of holding responsibility, exercising authority, and fulfilling divine assignments without distraction or distortion. Confirmation comes not just in words or signs, but in the internal knowledge that the Spirit has aligned fully with purpose, ready to operate in the fullness of God's design. The Chosen One emerges, awakened, purified, and ready. This is not a return to the previous self, nor is it a mere continuation of survival. It is a true rebirth, a resurrection into a higher level of spiritual maturity, discernment, and authority. The trials endured, the demons confronted, and the battles fought have prepared the vessel to step into calling with confidence, wisdom, and spiritual clarity. What was once hidden in silence is now visible in manifestation, and what was once dormant within the spirit is now alive, active, and prepared to influence destiny. This rebirth also brings a new perspective on struggle. Past battles are no longer seen as burdens, but as necessary precursors to the freedom, authority, and clarity now enjoyed. The Chosen One recognizes that victory was already secured in the unseen realms, and that every encounter with despair, betrayal, or false alignment was part of a carefully orchestrated process of purification and preparation. The reborn spirit steps forward with courage, expectation, and readiness, understanding that the path ahead is both divinely protected and strategically aligned with purpose. Ultimately, rebirth after the final battle marks the culmination of a journey from hidden struggle to manifest authority. The Chosen One moves forward, unburdened, purified, and empowered, carrying the lessons of the past, the clarity of identity, and the certainty of divine alignment. Every assignment, relationship, and opportunity now unfolds from a place of spiritual integrity and readiness. Victory has transitioned from survival to manifestation, and the Chosen One stands awakened, fully prepared and equipped to operate in the fullness of destiny that God has ordained. Even after the Chosen One has experienced victory, the enemy often launches a final attack. This last assault is not born of power, but of desperation, a last-ditch effort to reclaim influence over a spirit that has already been preserved and strengthened. The intensity of these attacks can feel acute, as though the adversary is attempting to undo what has been gained. Yet the nature of this final retaliation is fundamentally different from earlier opposition. It is a recognition that the Chosen One has grown beyond control, that resistance is now met with authority, and that previous tactics will no longer succeed. Old emotions and familiar temptations often attempt to re-enter the cracks left in the human spirit. Memories of past failures, moments of insecurity, or lingering desires can surface, testing vigilance and discipline. These remnants of previous battles are not random. They are precisely where the enemy hopes to exploit vulnerability. However, the difference now is profound. The Chosen One has developed discernment, spiritual maturity, and a heightened awareness that prevents these temptations from taking root. The spirit trained through previous confrontations recognizes the patterns of deception and responds with clarity, integrity, and unwavering faith. The response to this final assault is markedly transformed. Where once fear, confusion, or emotional turmoil might have arisen, now discernment, prayer, and calm authority define the reaction. The Chosen One engages with opposition not out of panic, but with spiritual precision, guided by a confident understanding of God's protection, purpose, and timing. Each prayer is strategic, each moment of stillness restorative, and each act of obedience deliberate. This measured, disciplined response ensures that the final attack serves only to highlight growth rather than to threaten purpose. At this stage, the Chosen One moves from survival into permanent establishment. Survival is no longer the goal. Authority, clarity, and alignment define existence. Peace, once sought as a comfort, now becomes a weapon influencing environments, shifting atmospheres, and neutralizing latent opposition. Presence itself carries weight, and the spirit radiates a calm power that draws divine opportunities while repelling attempts at disruption. The Chosen One's life becomes a demonstration of spiritual authority and alignment with purpose, signaling that the battles fought were not merely for endurance, but for establishment in destiny. Assignment becomes unmistakably clear, and boldness naturally takes root. Echoing the wisdom of Proverbs 28:1. The righteous are as bold as a lion. With clarity of purpose and the authority earned through trials, the Chosen One steps forward with courage, confidence, and strategic vision. Every decision, action, and interaction reflects a life no longer defined by fear or past struggle, but by the certainty of divine orchestration and personal empowerment. Finally, the Chosen One rises and walks fully in purpose. The cumulative victories over despair, betrayal, false alignment, and hidden opposition now manifest as authority, clarity, and spiritual influence. Every previous battle, every season of preparation, and every moment of unseen warfare has culminated in a life that operates boldly, decisively, and fully aligned with divine calling. The final retaliation is not a threat, it is the confirmation of establishment, the crowning of perseverance, and the herald of a life secured in purpose, presence, and eternal impact. Victory, while powerful, is not a static event. It must translate into daily discipline. Overcoming past battles and surviving spiritual warfare is only the beginning. The chosen one is called to live intentionally, ensuring that the triumphs of yesterday inform the actions of today. Discipline is not merely about effort or routine, it is the conscious choice to maintain spiritual, emotional, and mental alignment with purpose. Every decision, every interaction, and every habit becomes an opportunity to reflect the reality of victory, demonstrating that triumph is not temporary but transformative. Spiritual life is ultimately revealed in reactions, habits, and relationships. How the chosen one responds under pressure, the routines chosen to cultivate peace and growth, and the quality of connections with others, all serve as indicators of an overcoming life. Victory is not measured by the absence of trials, but by the ability to respond to challenges with integrity, calm, authority, and faithfulness. Habits of prayer, reflection, and obedience embed spiritual strength into daily life, while relationships rooted in respect, discernment, and wisdom reinforce the vessel's alignment with purpose. In this way, the life of someone who has overcome radiates both influence and stability. Protecting peace, setting boundaries, and maintaining alignment become central priorities. The chosen one recognizes that what was won in unseen spiritual battles must now be guarded with intentionality. Peace is not passive. It is a force that sustains clarity, authority, and spiritual vitality. Boundaries prevent distractions, deception, and compromise from re-entering areas of life that have been purified through struggle. Alignment is maintained through consistent engagement with God's Word, prayer, and deliberate obedience. Together, these practices ensure that the victories of the past are preserved and allowed to flourish, creating a secure foundation for continued purpose and impact. Choosing depth, clarity, silence, and presence is a hallmark of the one who has overcome. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and superficial engagement, the chosen one cultivates inner focus, spiritual awareness, and intentional thought. Silence is no longer a void, but a space for restoration, discernment, and communion with God. Depth allows understanding beyond surface appearances. Clarity sharpens decision-making, and presence ensures that influence is both felt and transformative. These choices are not optional. They are essential practices that sustain victory and cultivate a life that impacts others profoundly. Finally, the chosen one treats scars as testimony, not shame. Every wound, failure, or attack survived becomes evidence of resilience, divine protection, and spiritual authority. Scars are reframed as markers of lessons learned, strength developed, and victories achieved. Living as an atmosphere shifter rather than merely a survivor means carrying the weight of these experiences in a way that elevates, encourages, and influences the world around you. The life of someone who has overcome is active, purposeful, and radiant, showing not just that survival was possible, but that transformation, impact, and authority are the natural results of obedience, perseverance, and alignment with God's plan. The season of spiritual victory culminates in a deep prayer that seals the transformation the chosen one has undergone. This is not a casual supplication, but a deliberate act of aligning heart, mind, and spirit with God's purposes, formally declaring the authority, clarity, and divine positioning that have been earned through trials. The prayer acknowledges that every unseen battle, every moment of endurance, and every spiritual victory has brought the believer to this place of establishment. It is a moment of consecration, marking the end of survival mode and the full emergence into purpose, empowerment, and divine alignment. Gratitude flows first, honoring God for the unseen battles that were fought on the believer's behalf. These are the moments that went unnoticed, the spiritual victories that occurred quietly, and the protection that preserved life, identity, and calling. Deliverance from despair, betrayal, false alignment, and unseen attacks is acknowledged, not merely as relief from past suffering, but as proof of divine orchestration, care, and intimate involvement. Thankfulness becomes a powerful spiritual act, recognizing that the foundation of current victory rests upon God's faithfulness and wisdom. The prayer moves into a bold declaration. The chosen one will no longer live in survival mode. The time of running, hiding, and merely enduring is concluded. Life is now governed by authority, presence, and spiritual clarity. This declaration is both a boundary and a proclamation, asserting that the believer's identity, calling, and purpose are no longer vulnerable to past patterns of fear, compromise, or distraction. The chosen one is stepping into a new era, one defined by active alignment with God, the full exercise of spiritual gifts, and confident engagement in destiny. Requests are then lifted for discernment, discipline, restoration, and alignment. The believer petitions for clarity to recognize every opportunity for discipline to maintain focus and obedience, for restoration to reclaim what was lost or delayed, and for alignment to remain fully in rhythm with God's purposes. These petitions are not expressions of doubt, but instruments of empowerment, anchoring the chosen one in spiritual authority, intentionality, and preparation for what lies ahead. In this sacred moment, the believer receives beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, and strength for calling. The scars of past trials are transformed into testimonies of endurance and empowerment. Brokenness becomes refinement, pain becomes positioning, and weakness becomes a vessel of strength. The chosen one is fully equipped to operate in new assignments, elevated spheres, and expanded influence, receiving the fullness of divine provision, favor, and guidance. Finally, the prayer activates gifts, clarity, bold obedience, and purpose. Every spiritual endowment, every insight gained through prior battles, and every seed of calling is ignited for action and impact. The chosen one moves forward not by human effort, but in full partnership with God. Confident that the path is secure, the purpose is confirmed, and the authority has been established. The prayer is sealed in Jesus' name, binding all spiritual victories, confirmations, and divine instructions, and formalizing the believer's establishment in destiny, power, and spiritual authority. As this message draws to a close, the listener is reaffirmed as chosen, covered, and commissioned. Every trial endured, every unseen battle survived, and every victory achieved in silence has marked the life of the chosen one as divinely protected and strategically positioned. You are not here by accident, nor are your experiences random or meaningless. Each moment of struggle, each season of waiting, and each confrontation with despair or deception has been a deliberate preparation, establishing you as a vessel ready for purpose, authority, and influence. This is not merely recognition of past endurance. It is a divine confirmation of ongoing assignment and spiritual empowerment. You are chosen to rise, and your life is now aligned with destiny in ways previously unseen and unimaginable. At this pivotal moment, there is a call to agreement. Say Amen in your heart and spirit, affirming not only the truth of these words, but the reality of God's work in your life. This is an invitation to connect with community, with others who walk similar paths of overcoming and purpose, and to continue your spiritual growth in fellowship, encouragement, and shared wisdom. Agreement is not passive. It is an active declaration of faith, a statement that you recognize the victories won, the battles fought, and the authority now resting upon your life. By joining in agreement, you step into alignment with divine truth, activating spiritual momentum and reinforcing the continuity of blessing in your journey. It is also vital to remember that this encounter, this moment of reflection, revelation, and instruction was a divine appointment. God orchestrates meetings of timing, revelation, and insight for specific purposes, and your presence here was intentional. You have been positioned at the right time in the right place to receive clarity, encouragement, and empowerment. These words are not simply motivational. They are spiritual markers, guiding you to recognize the significance of what has already been achieved and what is yet to come. Divine appointments confirm that God is intimately involved in your journey, that He is shaping every step, and that nothing in your path is random or accidental. Encouragement is extended now to remain anchored, alert, and aligned. Anchor yourself in God's Word, the principles of obedience, and the practices of prayer, reflection, and discernment. Be alert to the subtle promptings of the Spirit, the signs of opportunity, and the cues of alignment that indicate the next steps in your journey. And above all, maintain alignment with purpose, with integrity, and with the principles that have been instilled through past victories. Staying anchored, alert, and aligned ensures that the life of the chosen one does not drift into compromise, distraction, or delay, but continues forward in divine rhythm, prepared to manifest every promise and every assignment that God has already established. Finally, hear this declaration and let it resonate within your spirit. The war is over, and the rising has begun. The battles, the opposition, the hidden attacks, and the seasons of preparation have concluded, leaving you strengthened, purified, and fully prepared to step into authority and purpose. You are no longer defined by survival struggle or resistance. You are defined by victory, alignment, and divine assignment. The rising is not tentative. It is bold, intentional, and fully empowered by God. Doors will open that were previously closed. Opportunities will appear that were once hidden, and influence will expand in alignment with calling. As you leave this place of reflection, carry the assurance that every unseen victory has been secured. Every lesson has been integrated, and every step forward is under divine guidance. Stand with confidence, proclaim your authority over every circumstance, and live as the one who has overcome. The war is over, but the rise, the unfolding, powerful, and manifest expression of purpose has begun. Step forward with boldness, clarity, and the unwavering faith that God's plan for your life is active, unstoppable, and eternally aligned with destiny.